everybody, welcome back to my channel. Happy Saturday. I'm so glad you're hopping on with me today. I am actually filming this video for my Sunday morning video. I had hoped to have this done sooner, but this week has been a blur. I had some orders come through, and I have been working to get my rabbits caught up on their grooming schedule. I was a little bit behind this week. With the cold temperatures that we had in January, we had about 2 to 3 weeks of really cold weather, and I did not groom anybody during that time. I didn't want to take anybody down too far where they didn't have a nice layer of warmth on them. And plus over the holidays, I always slack a little bit during that time. And so I had some catch up to do. But I got 3 of my 4 Germans all clipped down. I will do the 4th one on Monday morning. And so then all my German Angoras will be set for about 3 months is what their coat goes. And so I have a bunch of that to, my preference is to card any clipped fiber that I get. I prefer to spin it after it's been carded. You can, everybody has their own opinion on this and their own what they like to do, but you can spin it right as you clip it. You can spin it right that way too. I just prefer for it to be, I don't care for the blunt ends when I'm spinning. I'm not an overly consistent spinner. I'm not a technical spinner, but I do like, I don't know, when I'm spinning Angora, I like to have it nice and clean looking. I am trying to branch away from that. I've seen some beautiful yarns lately. I tend to spin not overly thin on my Angora, but I don't spin thick either. And I've seen some beautiful textured Angora, 100% spun Angora that's a little bit thicker and a little bit bumpier, and I really love the look of that. So I have to train my brain. I tend to get in a rhythm of doing things one way, and I can't get out of it. So I want to work on doing a little bit of some fun yarns with Angora here and see what I can come up with all the fiber that I have. So I have lots of work to do. Talking about shearing your Angoras when it's really cold, you can absolutely groom them and shear them when it is cold. And if you feel, I always get a lot of questions about that, like, you know, how cold is too cold before you shear them or groom them or whatever. In my opinion, like I said, I did hold off during those 2 weeks. We were really brutally cold. We had that Arctic blast. And so I did hold off. But you can make sweaters for your Angoras. I have personally never done it. Not because I'm against it, but I've never done it. I kind of jumped into this farming thing as a city girl with zero knowledge. And I have kind of learned along the way here. And I know that they put coats over sheep and things like that. But I have never put anything on my bunny. But if that's your choice and you would like to do that, I have seen people take like thrift store sweaters or old sweaters, and they will cut the arm off and use this section here, the cuff section, to put over the bunny's head, and then they cut a couple holes and make that work for them. So you can put a sweater on a bunny. That's one way you can go about doing it. I know I've seen other ways. I can't think of them any off the top of my head right now, but I have seen where they cut the sleeves off sweaters and use that as a coat for the bunny. So that is definitely an option. So yeah, that's where we're at this week. I have a ton of fiber to work with, and I sold a bunch this week too. So that's what I've been doing also, is getting orders around to go. And so it's been a good week, but it's been a very busy week. So I wanted to hop on to that. I have done this video in the past. It's been quite a while ago, and I want to do it again, and I want to go just a little bit more in depth with this video. My passion with spinning started with the drop spindle class. And that's actually what we're going to talk about today is, can you spin Angora fiber on a drop spindle? And I'm here to tell you you can. I may repeat myself here. I often tell this story. I took my passion for fiber art started with crochet probably close to 35 years ago when my mother-in-law, who wasn't my mother-in-law at the time, taught me how to crochet, and I fell in love. And I was content with red heart yarn and going to Walmart and picking out yarn, and then I got the bug to make my own yarn, and our local yarn shop offered a drop spindle class. I signed up with a friend and I went and learned how to drop spindle. Now the lady who taught us to drop spindle, she was an older lady at the time. I'm guessing she was probably in her 70s or 80s. And so what she taught us on was a teeny tiny, this was my drop spindle, a supported spindle. So these are what she brought to the class, and these are meant to be used. We had little dishes or cups, and you put it in the cup and you spin it on the cup, drop spindle. And this is how I learned, and you can see I do have some yarn on here. And you just loop it up the bottom just like you would on a drop spindle, put a little knot, and then this is how I learned to spin, was on a supported spindle. But the shop owner also had purchased drop spindles for everyone in the class. And so with this knowledge, I also received, this is the one I received that night many years ago, and this was the drop spindle that I learned on. This is an extremely lightweight drop spindle. I prefer mine a little bit heavier now, but this was just a typical bottom whirl. This is your whirl, and you would wrap it around and you would hitch it at the top here, and there's a little etched mark in the dowel. And that is what I learned to spin on, was this drop spindle right here. And I fell in love. It was instant love for me. And so, and then of course that night the shop owner also had a spinning wheel in the shop. And after the class, she asked me if I'd like to try it. And I said yes. And I was able to, at the time, sit down at a spinning wheel with the knowledge that I had from the 2-hour class and get the feel for a spinning wheel very, very quickly for me. I know it doesn't happen like that for everybody, but that's just how it was for me. And so that's when my journey started on a small acre fiber animal. Again, I didn't even know Angoras existed at the time. The only animal I could think in my brain was sheep. And I didn't go outside that box very much. I had no idea about goats at the time, fiber goats at the time. You know, there's alpacas were starting to come into the scene at that point. But so I had no idea. That's why I went on my journey and found the Angoras. And so that first couple years, I got my class, got a few rabbits. I had 3 to start with. Actually, I started with 2 and then added a male in to breed. And I started with the drop spindle. And so I have an assortment now, as you can see. Some of these are homemade. We're going to talk about that a little bit. This one my son made me. I have some in my shop, which are really heavy drop spindles, but they make, and you can use them as a regular drop spindle. These are the ones my husband and I have made. They're in my shop right now. But this one is another fantastic supported spindle. You can actually put this like on the floor and it spins very nice because it's so heavy. And this does a great job. So you can do lots of different things. And when I did a class for kids on how to make drop spindles. And so basically I bought wooden wheels from the craft store and then a dowel. I notched the end. And so this is a completely homemade, this probably cost me, oh, I don't know, $2 or $3 really. And the only thing with this one is I did not make the bottom, this one got glued, so you don't have that lip, but it's the same idea, and it has just enough of a lip. So you do the hitch knot at the top. So as long as it spins, you can make it. You can make them with CDs, old CDs and a dowel from the store. So that's how I started. My Angora journey was on a drop spindle. And I was cleaning out my room. I'm cleaning my office. I'm switching my office around. And I did run across, and I obviously did not take very good care of this in the beginning. It is now in a plastic bag. But this was my very first, and I think these are singles. Yeah, it's a single strand of Angora. These were my first 3 bunnies. You can see they're different colors. This was Mary, Elizabeth, and what was his name? Matthias. Mary, Elizabeth, and Matthias were my first bunnies, and you can see there are different colors in there, but this is all drop spindled. This was my very first yarn that I ever did on my own drop spindle with my very first bunnies. And so I kind of just keep that around, reminding me where I started. And so today's video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how I prepare my fiber for drop spindling and what I use and how to ply. You can ply on a drop spindle also, so we're going to touch base on that. If you have any more questions on something that I don't hit, please put them down below in the comment box. So when I took my drop spindle class, and I've repeated this story, I know it's just fascinating to me, but I took it with, there were quite a few people in the class, and one of the ladies was there. She had 9 cats, I think, 9 or 11 cats, and she took that drop spindle class specifically because she had bags of cat fiber. And that was the point where 20 years ago I questioned if I was actually in the right place, because that sounded totally bizarre to me. It no longer does. I would take anybody's cat or dog fiber and spin it, and I have. But I was back in the shop about 6 months after our class, and Joe, the shop owner, said, "Do you remember so-and-so? She was the lady with all the cats." And I said, "Oh yeah, I remember her." And she said, "Would you believe she was in the shop last week with a full-length sweater coat that she had knit herself? Not only knit, but it was 100% cat. I believe it was 100% cat fiber. I may be wrong on that now. But she had drop spindled the entire amount of her sweater coat. She said it was a long length one. And that always inspired me. Now today I'll be honest, I do not drop spindle much. I think there has been a resurgence of drop spindling in the last few years. And lots of people are doing it. It is very, very relaxing. But I don't take the time to do it anymore. And plus I'm spoiled. I have my Spinolution spinning wheels and I love them. And so, but I still have a passion for drop spindling, and my heart I just adore it. It takes me back to where I started. And so, I am going to pull out, I'm going to pull out a top whirl. This is one of my favorite ones, and I was teaching someone how to do this. I did do a local class last spring at a library to teach people how to drop spindle, so I was helping them. But I do like this spindle as a top whirl, and actually this has some plied fiber on it, which I'm going to show you here in a minute. So let's talk about prepping your Angora. I talked a little bit about how I like to card my fiber, and I would recommend that to get started with drop spindling. let me set this stuff on the floor so it's not in the way. And I am going to stand up here and switch you around here just a couple minutes just to show you how I get started. I probably should have practiced before I did this because I have not done this in a few months, but I'll, you know, if I drop it, and you guys kind of see how that all works. But so to prep my fiber with my Angora, I do, especially when I'm drop spindling, I do prefer it to be carded. So that might be the first thing that will help you to be able to do this. I have some carded Angora. This is, if you order fiber from me, this is how you get it. It's in one of these gauzy bags. And this is all been carded on my hand carders. I do prefer to hand card Angora. I bought, again, I kind of leaped into this world. I wish I would have gotten a mentor along the way. I did not, and I've kind of had to learn through experience and through trials and tragedies how to do all this. But I bought a drum carder when I was really into, or when I started heavily getting into this. And I don't think my drum carder has the right fabric on it. Wire fabric, is that what it's called? I can't think, my mind just went blank. So when I try to drum card my Angora, I feel like it tends to pill it up, it makes nubs on it and things. And so I prefer to hand card all of mine. And hand carding is just, I've got a little bit of Angora in here now. And you can see, I don't know if you can see this floating. If you try to spin clipped fiber, you tend to have a lot of that just floof everywhere. And by hand carding it, it kind of contains it into a bundle for you, if that makes sense. And so to hand card it, you just take a small amount and you fill your one side of your card. I won't fill this totally because this is all done. And then you just card it. I started out with dog flicker brushes, 2 of them. You do not have to invest a lot of money into this. You can make your own drop spindle and hand carders also. The dog flickers work great. They're a little bit smaller, but with drop spindling, that doesn't really matter because you're not doing huge amounts at a time anyways. Typically, you want to put it into a roll lag. I just pulled this off because this is how I'm going to drop spindle it. So that would be my first piece of advice, is to card it into a manageable clump of fiber. Clump isn't a great word, but that's essentially what I have in my hand, is a clump of Angora that's been carded. Again, there are top whirl drop spindles. This is going to be personal choice again. I like this one very much. I also like this one, and you can find spindles. I've purchased them through Amazon. I've purchased them through Paradise Fibers. They have something called a student drop spindle, which I think a couple of these are considered student drop spindles, and those are great. I've purchased them off Etsy. I have a Jelligan, yes, which is a Scottish drop spindle, which is totally different than this, and I didn't bring it out. When I pause this to go get, or to stand up and do this, I'll go grab my Jelligan. That's a Scottish spindle. I purchased that through Etsy. Etsy has a lot of handmade spindles. Or you can make your own. It's, you know, it essentially, as long as you have a circular whirl with a dowel. So this is a bottom whirl. This is a top whirl. And you just want something that's going to spin. I will show you on both of these actually. So let me pause this, and I'm going to stand up and hopefully get you set up so I can see, so you can see how I get it started. That can be probably the trickiest part, is to get it started on your drop spindle without losing, without dropping it. Another thing you want is your leader. This is considered your leader, whether it is a piece of, excuse me, a piece of yarn that you start with, or your working yarn, that's your leader. And so the one thing you want is you want a little bit of poof left at the end so that you can grab. You want your fibers not to be twisted, so that this is all going to grab together. So let me pause you and switch you around. Okay, and I did have to switch my camera, so I know on the video this is going to flip some, but this is the best way to show you how to do this. I did want to show you, this is my Jelligan. This is a Scottish spindle. This one is not easy for me. As you can see, I've done some spinning on it, but it's not an easy spin. But it is fun to have the different ones and see how different people groups use different spindles. So I have my top whirl. I have some loose fiber right here for my leader. To get started, I kind of lay this in my hand, and hopefully you can see that, and I kind of hold right there. Now you don't want to keep holding or your spin is not going to travel into your fiber, but you are going to, same idea as spinning on a wheel, clockwise to put on, counterclockwise to ply. And there are different ideas behind that. I do have a video on S-ply and Z-ply, which I'll try to remember to link above, but that essentially is what kind of twist you get in your fiber or in your yarn, is either an S twist or a Z twist, depending on how you're spinning everything. So I'm going to twist this clockwise. Whoops, and I already knocked it off. That's why this takes practice. I've been doing this for years and I still, there. And I'm just going to hold this until I see that twist start to come into the fiber that is in my hand. And then I'm going to start pulling. And you can see. And then the same idea is you are drafting with however, and I'm not going to tell you right or left because everybody spins differently. I am holding the fiber in my left hand and I am spinning with my right. It might be backwards on film or on the camera, but that's all I do. So I am getting a length. I'm going to take it off, wind it, and then I'm going to hitch it again and do the same exact thing. And I'm pulling with my right hand and letting, you have to let the twist from here come up into your hand. So you do have to let it go and just keep spinning. I've seen some people, I did not learn this way, but I have seen some people sit and they spin it on their hip. That would be a different way of spinning. But you can see the twist come in. I think you can see it. And that's all it is. That's all it takes. And with having this carded, it makes it nice, fairly clean. I can spin fairly thin on this also. It's just a matter of how much fiber you are letting into your yarn that you're making. So to get it thinner, I would just draft. Drafting is just pulling the fiber. I would just draft little teeny amounts. And now this is a drop spindle, and what's in between, then it drops. What's in between my two fingers is thread-like. So if you get, let me see if I can do that again. If you get the twist in it and don't get too thin, you shouldn't have any problems. So that's how thin I can go. And it's, you know, I could pick at it or pluck at it and it does break. That's the thing you don't want. You don't want your fiber breaking. You want to have a nice, strong fiber. The bottom whorl, same idea. This is, pull off that. You have a leader, and this is going to spin from the bottom. So same thing, clockwise, and I let this spin a little bit right into my hand as I start pulling to get the twist set to connect the two. And then I have a connection right there. And then I'm just going to spin. Whoops, I just lost it. I can feel it. There we go. Sometimes the hardest thing is getting this started. Once you get it started, it's fairly easy to keep going. You just want your hands to work together. And I like these bottom whorl. This one in particular is quite heavy. It's not quite as heavy as the ones that we make out of urethane, but this one has a nice spin to it, so it's still spinning right now. And I'm just working the yarn between my fingers to make that twist go into it. So I have, and it's still spinning. Pick it up and wind my fiber onto that. And then I want a little bit extra because this one you have to go to the bottom, wrap around, and then go back up to the top. At least that's how I learned. Maybe there are different ways of doing it. But do a hitch knot at the top and keep spinning. Oops. Clockwise. That's it. It's simple. I am just pulling gently. I'm only letting the fiber out of my left hand that I want to go into my single ply yarn. And that is drop spindling. Let me pause this. I'm going to shift you again and we're going to talk a little bit more. Okay, so that is the basics of drop spindling. I know it's not the same as being in person spinning, but I hope that this gives you at least a good idea. If there is no one near you that can teach you how to spin, that maybe you can get started on it and learn how to do it. Now, the other thing that people ask is, can you ply on a drop spindle? Can you take two amounts of fiber and ply? And yes, you can. There are a couple different ways to do this. I learned there are a couple different things you can do. I actually learned by using cups. You can use teacups, coffee cups. These are just big soup bowls that I have. And what you do is you sit these down in front of you, and you can do a couple of different things with the fiber. You can pull, let me show you here. I'm going to put this down. This is a dowel of one of the spindles. You can take, this is some spun fiber, you can take it off the dowel part, and I wouldn't recommend this. You can do it. You can just put this right into the cup, and that kind of holds it. I would recommend spinning this into a ball, is how I would recommend doing it. So you're going to end up with a ball, 2 balls of yarn, 2 balls of drop spun yarn. This is another one. This one's kind of crazy. I did have the ends here, but that's what you're going to do. You're going to put one of your balls inside this cup. The one thing with this cup is it kind of keeps the ball in so it's not running all over the floor while you're trying to drop spindle. You can loop your end around the handle. The other thing that works are, this isn't exactly what I'm thinking of, but this is a yarn bowl that my daughter-in-law got me, and it has the little loop. You put your yarn in here and it kind of keeps it tucked in here. and you thread the yarn through here as you're working. They make yarn bowls that have the swirly thing where you loop your yarn around. Those would be perfect. But these work great too. These are the same idea. And with a ball, you would be able to keep the yarn in there. And all you're going to do is take your 2 cups. Let's see, where's my other one? And your 2 balls of yarn. And you're going to put 1 in each cup. And you're going to find the ends. I don't even know if I can find this end anymore. I think this was a class that I taught, and this was somebody's yarn. And actually it might be plied. That's why it looks the way it does. So you're going to take 2 cups and you're going to bring your fiber. Here's another one. From, this was another class that I was teaching. So let me put this in here. So I have, pretend that these are 2 balls. These are both off drop spindles. I'm going to set these on the floor in front of me. And you would just take the 2 ends and you're going to take your drop spindle. Let me get my top row one. And essentially you're going to do the same thing. I would tie off, if you're plying, I would take the 2 ends and tie it to the leader on my drop spindle, just like you would on a spinning wheel. Now, to ply these are going to be sitting on the ground. I am going to put these down and see if I can do it. I don't want to switch the camera again, but I think you get the idea. All I'm going to do is have, and again, it would work much better if those were in balls and not in directly from the drop spindle. But since you plied them clockwise, if you spin this counter, whoops, and that's your biggest challenge. You don't want to get everything caught up. You want some space between you. So you would counterclockwise spin. And I just dropped it. That's where the name drop spindle comes from. The challenge with this is you have yarn that's been clockwise spun and you're going to counterclockwise it and it untwists it. So you have to get it started. But you can see my yarn is plying with the drop spindle. And you would just take your balls and continue to do that by counterclockwise. And you can make plied yarn with a drop spindle. So, and all of this is student yarn that I've taught from, so it's not overly consistent yarn at all, but it's really easy to do all of this stuff with simple, inexpensive tools. So I think I touched base on everything that I wanted to today. Again, if you have any questions, please put them down below. I'm always happy to answer. So can you spin on a drop spindle 100% Angora? Absolutely. That's how I started, and I've not had any issues. There is a learning curve to learning to drop spindle anyway. Angora is a little bit slicker fiber, so it does take a little bit more effort, but I truly believe you guys can do this. So I hope this video was helpful. I hope you have a fantastic Saturday and a weekend, and I hope you're creating something today. Again, if you have any questions for me, put them down below. If you like this video, please click the like button, and if you don't already, please subscribe to my channel. Bye, guys.